Yes, people, it's your boy Tech Jamo shooting on the Nothing Phone 1. We're at 4K 30 on the main sensor at the moment. One thing I love about this phone is there's a little red light that flashes when you're recording, so you always know that your recording is going down well. Now, we're in my bedroom. It's a little bit of a low light situation. We've got some RGB in the background. Just trying to see what my face looks like in this kind of lighting. And now let me switch to the ultra wide, which you can't do whilst you're recording. Right, now we're on the ultra wide camera on the Nothing Phone 1. It should be a little bit darker because the aperture is a little smaller on this lens, but you should be able to see a lot more around me in the room. I'm not sure what the exposure is going to come out. As I said, it should be a little bit darker, maybe a little bit underexposed. But yeah, this is what it's going to look like in low light indoor conditions. Anyway, let's go outside. I think we've got a little bit of sunlight out there, so let's see how we do. Right, now we're using the front-facing camera on the Nothing Phone 1. Now, this only shoots up to a maximum of 1080p at 30 frames per second. But bear in mind, I have exported this whole collection of videos at 4K 60. So bear that in mind when you're looking at the difference in quality kind of thing. But, you know, it's a decent, okay-ish camera. Not really much to say about it, really. It's a bog standard selfie camera that only gives you 1080p 30. Would have been nice to see 1080p 60. Would have been even nicer to see 4K on the front-facing camera. But for $4 this is what you're getting. Now, this is 1080p 60 frames per second on the rear-facing main sensor with image stabilization on. What are you saying there, Leo? Yeah, good boy. Yeah. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about the image stabilization. I think it's not too bad. If I walk over here to look at some of these pairs, not too bad. And now let me try this main sensor again at 1080p 60, but without the image stabilization. Right, and this is 1080p 60 frames per second, but without image stabilization. Leo, what are you doing now? Do you know, this looks kind of clear. What is that? Yo, excuse me. A close peg? Bro. No. Bad dog. Yeah, I'm watching you. But yeah, this is 1080p 60 frames per second without image stabilization. As you can see, if I'm walking, it looks a bit shaky. I can notice how it's shakier now. But you do get more field of view when you take the image stabilization off due to no cropping. Anyway, let me try 4K. Right, now we've got the 1080p 60 frames per second on the ultra wide with the image stabilization on. Yeah, and it goes into macro as well. Love having an ultra wide camera that has autofocus on it. But anyway, let's do some walking around and see what the image stabilization is saying in 1080p 60. Not bad. Do this as well. Yeah, it's quite decent if you ask me. And then this is 1080p 60 on the ultra wide camera, but with the image stabilization off. Macro focus is still good. I like how I'm in a garden and I'm using macro focus on a fake flower on a scarecrow, where there's actually lots of flowers over there, but man doesn't do that outdoors like that. And the ones when they say touch grass, I can't do it. Sorry. Oh yeah, let me do the little stabilization walking test. And this is 1080p 60 frames per second with no image stabilization on. Okay. Now this is the 4K with no image stabilization. Let me just walk down. I'm just doing handheld, no gimbal, no nothing. 4K, no image stabilization at all. Leo's like, what the hell is this guy doing? Alright, let me try 4K with image stabilization. Now this is the 4K with image stabilization. I can see little tremors as I'm walking down the garden, but the fact that it can do 4K with stabilization at all is not too bad. Not too bad at all. Yeah, there's a notice noticeable delay though on what is on the phone's preview screen and what's actually happening. But yeah, no, this is not too bad. 4K with stabilization, yeah, I'll give that good. And now this is 4K with stabilization, but on the ultra wide sensor, which actually does have focus. Yeah, Leo, yeah. Thing actually has focus. Like, look at these blades of grass. Wow. These blades of grass actually be blading, fam. Yeah? Not mad at the quality, to be honest. Especially from video on the ultra wide camera. You're not usually expecting to get that on these mid-range handsets, whatever they are. And then this is 4K on the ultra wide without any image stabilization. Give it that little test. There you go. Not bad, not bad. Alright, so autofocus test, 1080p 60 on the main sensor. Okay. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's actually quite fast. Let me just see if the results are the same speed at 4K. 4K 30 frames per second autofocus test on the main sensor. There we go. I actually can't tell how fast it's doing it because there's quite a bit of lag in the preview of what's going on here. So I'm going to have to see this when I put it into post. Looks okay though. And autofocus test on the ultra wide lens at 1080p 60 frames per second. Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me what you think. Oh, yep. There we go. Got a bit of slowdown there. I'm back in. Okay. Now, autofocus test on the ultra wide lens at 4K 30 frames per second. Yep, where is it? Okay, that took a bit long. See, I can't tell if it's actually taking long or if it's just the preview that's a bit slow. Even the auto exposure of that fence in the background looks a bit dodgy here. Because it's trying to expose for underneath the gazebo, it looks like. Yeah, anyway, let's chuck it into post and see what it's saying. And finishing off with a little bit of slow motion, we've got 1080p at 120 frames per second here. And I'm not mad at it. I think it's actually usable, especially considering the fact that right now you're watching it on a 4K 60 timeline. It looks decent. Yeah, no, I'm not mad at it at all. Do you know what, guys? I'm not mad at this phone. I kind of like it. For YouTube, using it as your main camera, I think it's pretty much decent. On both the main and the ultra wide cameras, you get up to 4K 30 frames per second video with image stabilization, which is pretty much decent. You get 1080p 60 on those rear facing cameras as well as the 120 frames per second at 1080p for your slow-mo. And you got a nice little recording button there that lets you know when the thing is definitely recording, which is, you know, another thing that you'd love to have on your camera phone if you can't see the preview itself. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely a decent phone at this price bracket. Definitely enough for YouTube. Only thing that I would have liked to have is maybe support for an external microphone in the native camera app through USB-C. But yo, we can't have it all apparently, unless we can.